think this should mostly be working. Let's see. Which ones are working? Is this working now? You guys will have to let me know. It's the purpose of the test stream. Okay. Okay. Let's start this manually. Let's start this manually. Let's start this manually. Fuck. I can't watch my own streams, obviously, because then that creates that feedback, so hopefully that's fixed there. Alright, now let's see if I can just like scroll some Twitter. What do we got on here?
Specialist role at CenterCorp since April 2022.
Yeah, everything looks great. You got a lot of great experience. Unfortunately, we're just not 100% there yet, so we are going to have to set up another interview.
This is my 163rd round interview coming up. I know the team very well. I know a lot of personal details about all of their lives. Hey Patty, how's Brian's recovery going? Oh, is that Riley? I remember when she was a baby, growing up right in front of my eyes. Was she in the first grade now? The first year I interviewed with a ton of different people, but now I just have a weekly interview with Ignacio, who they hired as a full-time interviewer for the data specialist role.
See, you have a 3-year employment gap here. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so that was when I started interviewing for this job back in 2022. So that's why it looks like there's a 3-year gap.
Okay. Yeah, that's gonna be tough to square with Tracy.
Having interviewed Martin for the last couple of years, we've actually become really good friends. We went to a couple of football games together, and he was the best man at my wedding. And a few months ago, we both realized we needed a roommate, so now we live together.
Do you want to go to the gym after the interview today?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, I'll see you in 30.
All right, cool. Hey, Martin.
Hey, Ignacio.
Have you seen the can opener?
No.
That's pretty funny. Alright, so Twitter's working. I'm trying to get this set up because later on I plan on streaming with Joseph and Jared. And so I'm going to have to do another, probably test stream to set up, what do you call it? There's like some third-party software I can use that will allow them to join. Alright, see what else is going on Twitter in the meantime. U.S. is issuing visas to OnlyFans models over highly qualified tech workers. I don't know if that's the case, but they're definitely issuing visas to OnlyFans models who make lots and lots of money. What did I save here on Twitter? Let's see. I thought I had saved some things over the couple days.
A little bit of whiplash. You have to see how some people might be feeling a little bit of whiplash here, given that Trump spent 10 years railing against U.S.-led regime change war. His own director of intelligence, as recently as 2 months ago, was railing against regime change war, and then he does one. So
is this a regime change? The regime is still there. As far as I know, the vice president.
Let me get this straight. We go to a country, we capture their leader, we bomb it, and then we say, we run this country now. And that's not war. But when they say send cocaine over here that people are willingly snorting, that is war.
I think I think that
doesn't make any sense.
It does to me in the sense that If this guy is committing crimes against the United States, you lawfully go and get him. He gets his due process here. The regime is still the same. The VP's there. He wasn't the elected. Remember, he wasn't elected legitimately. So he was never considered the leader of Venezuela by anybody except for himself. So I think it was, difference of opinion, but he.
Big claim from Gutfeld there. It's funny. He's the only person who considers himself the leader of Venezuela, really? I think there's some other people who consider him the rightful leader. Either way, it's very funny. Here's Paul L. Williams. This is the author of that Gladio book I read for a while.
Created ISIS. I mean, ISIS is no less than the people up in Islamberg, no less than Gulen, is a CIA creation. John McCain, for heaven's sake, was over there with the ISIS officials. We created them. They came from the Al-Nusra group, the Syrian Liberation Front. These two organizations combined, and they morphed into ISIS. It's our creation. We create them. We still direct them. When ISIS warriors are injured in battle, where are they transported? They're transported, for heaven's sake, to Israel. They're treated by the Israelis in Israeli hospitals and brought back to battle.
Some insights from Paul L. Williams. That's like I said, the guy who wrote that Gladio book. I didn't know he was like a CIA consultant. I know he had like some kind of FBI consultant, Paul L. Williams. So he had like some kind of role with the government, but then ends up writing all these books exposing what they do. This Kim Jong-un broke down in tears after seeing thugs abuse Maduro's wife. Let's see. What is this one? BBC Verify tells us that Venezuela exerting further state control over its own oil industry in 2007 was controversial. Controversial to who? The World Bank, apparently? Alas, BBC Verify doesn't explain the role of the World Bank or its history. Let's hear what this guy has to say.
In 2007, the former Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez controversially exerted much further state control over these remaining foreign-owned assets. The Venezuelan government was subsequently required to pay compensation to US oil companies by a World Bank tribunal. In 2007, the former Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder, is this actually the guy who made the Boondocks, or he's just like a fan of it? It's Bryce Green, but I've seen him before on Twitter. He always has like good takes. But he says, I'm searching, can anyone find any instance of US cable news showing images of this protest, even if to dismiss it? And it's RT showing this is Venezuela right now, hundreds on the streets calling for Maduro's release, holding his portraits and giant national flag. Yeah, but again, to hear Greg Gutfeld of Fox News say it, only Maduro considers himself the rightful leader of Venezuela. Just himself. Wild that he was able to lead the country for so long with that little confidence. Here's Nizmani replying to Emily Schrader. Emily Schrader says, anyone who has a problem with Maduro being captured and brought to justice should review the following footage of what Maduro did to his own people. This is who you stand with, commies. Free Venezuela. And it's like a video of these trucks supposedly running over some protesters. And Nizmani says, hi, Emily, I have instant access to about 10 videos at least of Israeli military jeeps ramming into Palestinians. Therefore, look forward to you calling for the kidnap of Netanyahu. Double standards and deception is the bread and butter of Zionism, and no one is buying your shit. U.S. ambassador to the United States, to the United Nations, tells the world why the U.S. has kidnapped the Venezuelan ambassador. You cannot continue to have the largest oil reserves in the world under the control of adversaries of the United States. Let's hear him actually say the quiet part out loud.
You cannot continue to have the largest energy reserves in the world under the control of adversaries of the United States. You cannot continue to have the...
Yep, can't do it. So somebody's like, Nicolas Maduro is reportedly stunned by the rights afforded to him under U.S. law. He said he'd never imagined having an attorney, the right to remain silent, the possibility of bail, or protections against statements made without counsel being used against him. After being read his rights, he reportedly said, I was unaware of those rights. Adam Johnson says, I assure you they have lawyers in Venezuela. Watch Americans or eat it and repeat it like Young Me Park. In Venezuela, they don't have lawyers. Yeah. It's pretty crude propaganda, like people are saying. Please relax this. Are you stupid? Be honest. Could somebody explain to me what the red flags mean in a Jubilee video? Because I don't watch that slop. But here is like somebody replying. This is Right Wing Cope replying to Adam Mockler. He's saying like the red flags raising in unity the moment she got debunked. And then Right Wing Cope is saying you can't even make up how genuinely stupid Trump voters are. Let's hear what they have to say.
When you are attaching the term fascist, you're talking about Nazis. You're talking about specifically Nazis. And when they say oppression...
Not just Nazis.
I'm saying specifically for what I'm saying. The suppression of the opposition, when they're calling Trump Hitler, they're calling conservatives...
Who's they? J.D. Vance?
I'm sorry, leftist. When the leftist...
Which leftist politician? Can you name one?
I think you're moving the goalpost here.
Wait, no. Can you name one leftist politician who has called Trump Hitler?
It's every single... It's like...
So you shouldn't be throwing this out when no leftist politicians have actually called Trump Hitler.
And you're throwing out the term fascism.
Is saying that an election was stolen when it wasn't fascism? Wait, do you think the 2020 election was stolen?
I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know because I'm not
honestly,
up in power to
this
find
proves
that
my
out.
point. Trump is causing a rise of fascism in our generation. I would never say that you're a fascist, but I think there is a normalization of an ideology where people are denying elections. You don't even know if the 2020 election was stolen. This isn't America. The 2020 election was not stolen.
When you were
silly. You guys feel like you're making progress with those? You guys feel like you're changing people's minds? You feel like you're radicalizing people? Here's some Aaron Rupar. I thought I didn't follow this guy. He's like very liberal. Oh, I don't follow him. Why the fuck? Okay, not saying I do. I don't know. I think I just followed and unfollowed him right now. I don't know. Anyway, Tapper says, can you rule out that the U.S. is going to take Greenland by force? Let's see what Stephen Miller says.
Important topic. The Premier of Greenland and the Premier of Denmark and other Danish officials are responding to a Twitter post from your wife, Katie Miller, herself a former Trump White House official, showing Greenland covered with an American flag, saying soon after that was posted, President Trump repeated the claim that the U.S. needs Greenland for national security reasons. The Danish Prime Minister responded to this in an interview earlier today, as reported by Bloomberg, quote, I believe one should take the American president seriously when he says it wants Greenland, but I will also make it clear that if the U.S. chooses to attack another NATO country militarily, then everything stops, including NATO, and thus the security that has been established since the end of the Second World War. Can you rule out that the U.S. is ever going to try to take Greenland by force?
Well, let me go back a step. The president has been clear for months now, so I know you're treating this as breaking news. The president has been clear for months now that the United States should be the nation that has Greenland as part of our overall security apparatus. The United
Right, but
States,
your wife posted that like hours after the Venezuela operation. That's why it's newly relevant.
No, I'm not, and I'll talk with you about it for an hour. I think it's a really important conversation. I just wanted to reset, Jake, by making clear that it has been the formal position of the U.S. government since the beginning of this administration, frankly, going back into the previous Trump administration, that Greenland should be part of the United States. The president has been very clear about that. That is the formal position of the U.S. government.
Right, but can you say that military action against Greenland is off the table?
It wouldn't be military action against Greenland. The Greenland has a population of 30,000 people, Jake. The real question is, by what right does Denmark assert control over Greenland? What is the basis of their territorial claim? What is their basis of having Greenland as a colony of Denmark? The United States is the power of NATO. For the United States to secure the Arctic region, to protect and defend NATO and NATO interests, obviously Greenland should be part of the United States. And so that's a conversation that we're going to have.
I've also seen the take that some of the U.S. officials are saying we're going to decolonize Greenland by taking it from Denmark. I think that's really funny. That's what happens when you don't police who uses your language. That's what happens when you don't actually have any kind of like principled control over like who gets to call themselves a Marxist, a leftist, a decolonial person. You get people like the far right using it to literally do imperialism. See what else we got. Jeremy Fragrance. This is what was in Trump's dreams. Yeah, that's very funny that like Trump ultimately decided to go after Maduro and kidnap him because he was so frustrated and aggravated, like taunted by the dancing videos. Here's a squirrel saying, "How to secure your nation's sovereignty from Israel, U.S., NATO, Zionist imperialism." Yeah, this is the only way. Gotta have the nukes, baby. Yeah, another post from Calla Walsh. I should actually see how are the hunger strikers doing since that keeps getting pushed out of the news. UK hunger strike passes 60 days with Palestine activists suffering severe health complications. It probably is the latest one, but let's see. I guess I'll just read the Middle East Eye one. All right, so this is by Ari Bula. A Palestinian activist on remand in a UK prison is suffering worsening medical complications, including muscle spasms and difficulty breathing, as her hunger strike passes the 60-day mark. Prisoners for Palestine (P4P) said that Heba Maraisi, on remand for more than a year over Palestine-related activism, has now reached 64 days without food, making her the longest-serving hunger striker amongst the group. Maraisi began her strike on November 3rd, 2025, after she was transferred without notice from HMP Bronzefield to HMP New Hall, hundreds of miles away from her family and support network. Maraisi told P4P that she has been, quote, experiencing muscle spasms and twitches in her arm, and at times she feels like she is holding her breath and doesn't know why, like she has to remind herself to breathe. P4P says these symptoms could indicate emerging neurological damage. Maraisi has vowed not to end her hunger strike unless she is returned to HMP Bronzefield and granted immediate bail. Demands, she says, reflect the strain of prolonged remand custody that campaigners argue has already exceeded standard UK limits. Her mother, Dunya, who has been unable to visit her daughter, expressed support in a letter shared by P4P. "We are behind you, supporting you, and loving you without limits," said Dunya. "No matter how long the night of waiting lasts, the sun of freedom will surely rise." Grave danger looms. Maraisi is one of 8 activists linked to Palestine Action who have been on hunger strike to protest the government's decision to hold them on remand and prescribe the Direct Action Group. 4 of the activists have paused their hunger strike and said they would resume their protest in the new year. Last week, another hunger striker, Kamran Ahmed, was hospitalized for the 5th time since beginning his hunger strike. His family told Middle East Eye that Ahmed said he was kept double cuffed throughout his hospital stay, leaving his wrists swollen, while healthcare staff struggled to insert cannulas because his veins had shrunk. I guess that means IVs. I guess that's what they call them in the UK. Ahmed has now reached 58 days on hunger strike and has reported intermittent hearing loss, a sign that irreversible damage could be imminent, medical experts cited by campaigners warned. P4P says it has repeatedly raised concerns about the restraints used during Ahmed's hospital admissions and the wider lack of medical accommodation for the strikers. The British government has so far refused to meet the hunger strikers or their representatives despite the escalating escalating health risks, the group said, warning that organ failure, paralysis, brain damage, and sudden death are becoming, quote, increasingly more likely. Quote, as the hunger strike enters its 3rd month, those still on hunger strike continue to deteriorate and grave danger looms over them, said P4P spokesperson Francesca Nadine. Despite this, they remain firm in their actions and beliefs that continuing to strike is the only way to get justice in the face of the government's contempt for life. Meanwhile, a 3rd prisoner, Tuta Hosha, has temporarily paused her hunger strike after authorities handed over a backlog of letters dating back 6 months, providing a book alongside an apology for the delay, and confirmed a meeting with the Joint Extremism Unit, the JEXU, to discuss her conditions. However, campaigners say the prison has since refused to send her to the hospital, despite doctors' warning that she cannot safely manage feeding herself without risk of refeeding syndrome, a potentially life-threatening complication. P4P argues that the treatment of all 3 prisoners reflects a wider pattern of punitive transfers, prolonged remand, and inadequate medical protection faced by detainees linked to Palestine solidarity activism. I mean, I'm actually glad a few of them have paused their hunger strike because it seems like the logical move. Like, if people are just going to pay attention to other things and your hunger strike is not going to get noticed, whether it's because of the holidays or just other events in the news cycle, kind of makes sense to pause your strike because the whole point of it is to garner attention to your cause. Anyway, I think I'll wrap up with. I'm going to read this other post of my own. Let's see. Because this was my most popular post on Substack, and it was also here on Instagram. Let's see. Go. Why can't I view it? What the hell? So just not that one. I can't open it. Oh my god, so stupid. Okay, I'll just view it in my Substack then. Alright, so we got a picture of Hassan Piker. At first glance, the American quote-unquote left appears to be a constellation of progressive movements, activists demanding social justice, mutual aid networks supporting communities, and advocates petitioning for expansive social programs. However, a closer examination reveals a political formation that has abandoned the core internationalist and anti-imperialist tenets of leftism, evolving instead into a variant of National Socialism, not in the genocidal fascist sense, but in its literal structure, a politics that seeks a robust, socially oriented welfare state for a designated national in-group, explicitly funded by and reconciled with global imperial dominance and the subjugation of external populations. We've got a picture of a DSA rally here. This transformation is most evident in the movement's carefully bounded opposition. The performative protests against the U.S. government and the cultivation of mutual aid operate within a sanctioned arena of dissent that does not fundamentally threaten systemic power. Mutual aid, while noble in alleviating immediate suffering, functions as a pressure valve, addressing the worst failures of capitalism at a micro level, without challenging the macroeconomic structures that create those needs. Similarly, mass protests often culminate not in revolutionary demands for the dismantling of state or capitalist power, but in appeals for reform and recognition from that very power. This spectacle of resistance is tolerated precisely because its ultimate aim is not overthrow, but negotiation for a better seat at the imperial table. Got a picture of another protest from probably the 60s. The most glaring evidence of this National Socialist bargain is the core agenda of the mainstream American left: the petitioning of the federal government for expanded social programs, universal health care, student debt forgiveness, enhanced unemployment benefits. These demands are not coupled with a substantive critique of the imperial machine that generate the wealth required to fund them. The unspoken agreement is that the Pentagon budget, the network of global military bases, and the economic warfare waged to maintain dollar hegemony will remain untouched, as they are the engines extracting the surplus that can be partially redistributed domestically. The implicit claim is that American citizens, including its progressive citizens, deserve freedom from want, but that this comfort is contingent on the continued want of others abroad who bear the brunt of resource extraction, destabilization, and labor exploitation. Here we have a picture of Kamala standing in front of local UAW 900 during her campaign. Thus, the project becomes one of securing a more equitable distribution of the spoils of empire, not the dissolution of empire itself. This politics willingly subordinates the fate of minorities and oppressed nations around the globe to the material comfort of the domestic populace. It expresses solidarity in rhetoric but accepts in practice a system where social democracy at home is financed by imperialism abroad. This is the essence of National Socialism, a collectivist ethos applied strictly within the nation, built upon a foundation of chauvinism and external domination. Got a picture of Vaush here. This position is not an accidental one, but the product of a decades-long project of political sterilization. The true Marxist and revolutionary left in the United States was systematically dismantled through a combination of overt repression, from the Palmer raids and COINTELPRO to the blacklisting and marginalization of radical unions, and a more subtle, pervasive propaganda campaign that equated socialism with totalitarian regimes and severed the logical link between domestic class justice and international anti-imperialism. The surviving quote-unquote left was gradually pushed into the safe confines of the Democratic Party, a non-profit industrial complex, where politics is reduced to lobbying for incremental policy shifts within an unassailable framework of capitalist and imperial power. Consequently, the contemporary American left, in its dominant mainstream form, is a paradox. It uses the language of liberation while being fundamentally reconciled to the power structures it claims to oppose. It seeks security and comfort within the fortress of the empire, asking not for the fortress to be dismantled, but for its interior to be more comfortably appointed. In betraying the internationalist imperative that defines genuine leftism, it has morphed into a movement for national social welfare, a social democracy of the metropole, predicated on and perpetuating the very global inequalities it professes to abhor. And I ended it with a picture of Dean Withers. He's like the new, young, snarky kid on the block defending all the liberal bullshit. They just keep recreating themselves. The whole class just perpetuates. It's so weird how it does that. Sorry, I haven't kept up with the Instagram chat. I forgot you guys were even there. My bad. Looks like it's pretty far behind too. Sorry. Yalzin Fair says, just like how the ambassador of Israel says that Hamas and Hezbollah have bases in Venezuela. It's quite hilarious. Yeah, it is very funny. And he also said, Americans don't have the brain to think. They just eat up anything the media tell them. Yeah. Yeah, Yalzin Fairs also said Greenland should become its own independent state. That'd be cool. That's probably like the best outcome you could hope for. Not very likely though, but... Alright, you guys, I'm going to wrap this up. Just wanted to do a quick test stream just to make sure that all my software and shit was working. But maybe I'll clip up that article section and post that somewhere else, because again, that was like my most popular post, and a lot of people haven't even read it because they just won't read through things. Reading is hard. So maybe if I post it as a video somewhere, it'll get even more traction. So, alright, you guys, but thanks for joining. I will hopefully see you guys tonight. Jump on around 7 p.m. Eastern, and I should be here with Jared and Joseph for about 2 hours to do like a normal news roundtable, talk about current events and stuff. But all right, I will see you then. How do I stop this now?